Hello and welcome to my channel, Distinctively Handcrafted. My name is Priscilla and I would like to thank all my new subscribers for coming to check me out and all my returning subscribers for spending some time with me. All right, everyone, I am super excited to come and share with you all a tutorial for some knit socks, and we are going to be knitting 2 socks at a time. This is also a knitted tube sock, so it's going to be super easy, beginner friendly. If this is your first pair of knitted socks, this is the tutorial you will want to follow. It's going to be very easy, and you will be also knitting 2 at a time. All right, so I do have 2 different colors here, and that is because the 2 at a time technique can sort of be a little different to get used to, and until you're used to the flow of how you knit the socks evenly, I would recommend using 2 different colors. If you would prefer to use one color and that way you have a matching pair when you're done, then definitely make sure you have 2 stitch markers that are different colors, and then that will help you to remember which sock you're working on and the beginning of that particular sock. All right, so I would highly recommend this. You can always wear the 2 different socks together as a pair, and then go ahead and knit another 2 at a time using the same colors, and then you'll have 2 pairs that match. Okay, so I would definitely recommend doing this until you are used to it. All right, so this yarn that I am using is a Patton's Classic Wool DK Super Wash. It's a number 3 yarn, and this is the color light gray heather, and this one is the color apple green. If you are not able to use wool, I would recommend maybe an acrylic yarn that has a little bit of nylon in it, just to give a little bit of stretch in the yarn, and that will probably be a good replacement for this yarn here. All right, so you will also need a pair of circular knitting needles with a cord that's at least 40 inches long. That way you will be able to comfortably work both pairs of socks at the same time. I am using the size 3.75 millimeters for this particular yarn. And also this pattern is my own pattern, if I didn't mention that, and it is called the Garter patch socks. All right, so hopefully this sounds interesting to you, so you can go ahead and keep watching and make these 2 at a time socks along with me. I am going to get us started with letting you know what techniques you need, and you will need to know how to do magic loop method. I do have a tutorial and I will link that down below. You will also need to know how to do the Turkish cast on. I have a tutorial for that and I will link that down below as well. Go ahead and grab your materials so that you can get started along with me. And if you don't mind, I appreciate it if you give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't, and that way you won't miss out on any more tutorials that I have to offer. All right, everyone, so I want to explain a little bit about the order of how 2 at a time socks go. Basically, you are going to have to cast on both of your socks before you start working them, and the first sock you cast on will end up here, and the second sock you cast on will actually end up in the front and will be the first one that you start working on. I do go over this in the tutorial, how to cast them on and the order to work them. It's just that I didn't give like an overall explanation, so I wanted to go ahead and do that, and then hopefully that will give you an idea of what's going to be going on as we get into the tutorial. Also, I would definitely recommend that you have several stitch markers on hand, because we will be probably using the more than the 2 that we have here. All right, so I just wanted to add that bit of information in, so hopefully that is a little bit more helpful when we're getting started with the tutorial. All right, everyone, so let's go ahead and get started with our cast on. So I am going to start off with this green color. And the first thing we need to do, of course, is make a slip knot. Oops. So we're going to go ahead and get that on our back needle. And then we're going to make the number of wraps for the size sock that you're going to be knitting. Now, if you're a small, that would be a 8-inch circumference around the ball of your foot. You'll need to go ahead and cast on 6 stitches. If you're a medium, which is a 9-inch circumference, you would cast on 8. And if you are a large, which is a 10-inch circumference around the ball of your foot, you will go ahead and cast on 10 stitches. All right, so to do that for the Turkish cast on, it is wraps. So you're just going to wrap it the number of time for the cast on stitches. So for example, I'm going to be knitting the medium size, so I will need 8 wraps for mine. All right, so I'm just going to wrap that 8 times. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and just go ahead and count. Yes. Okay, now the very next thing we are going to do is go ahead and do the same thing with our next color of yarn. Since we're doing this 2 at a time, we have to do it in this order so that it flows properly on the magic loop method. All right, so go ahead and put your slip knot. Oops, that just fell right back. Slip knot on the back needle and do the number of wraps for your size. Okay, now this is not very secure because they are just wraps, so you definitely want to try to hold those the last wrap down as much as possible. Go ahead and turn your work. And now we are going to begin knitting the wraps. So pull out that back needle and let me see and make sure that I grab that yarn around that cord so that it's locked in place, and then go ahead and begin knitting each of those wraps. So mine is the gray color first. And you want to make sure that you didn't lose any wraps. So make sure you count and have the correct number of stitches that you need. If not, then go ahead and make your corrections. Okay, now for the slip knot, we do not knit the slip knot. It's not a stitch, so we're just going to drop that off the needle. And now we are ready to go ahead and work on our next color or our next sock. Okay, so for me that is the green one, so I'm going to go ahead and knit those. All right, so now I'm going to drop off that slip knot off of that needle, and now we're going to go ahead and turn our work, and we are going to knit the wraps on the other side. Okay, and then that will complete our cast on, our first round of our pattern. All right, and then it'll get a little bit more easier and less fiddly. So go ahead and tuck that tail down in between the needles, pull that back needle out, and begin working or knitting these next set of wraps. Okay, let me see, make sure I have my 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. Yep, the 8 are still there. going to go ahead and knit that. All right, so now we're just going to go ahead and continue on with the gray sock or the second sock. So go ahead and tuck that tail down in between the needles here, just like that. And then make sure you have your 8, 2, 4, 6, 8. All right, so now I'm just going to go ahead and start knitting. Okay, so we have completed our cast on and our first, which is our first round of the pattern. So now we're going to go ahead and turn our work. And what you want to do here after you get your stitches back on the needle, oops. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and place the stitch markers on the first stitch of the round so that we can keep track of our first stitch in the round. So don't slide it on the needle. Go ahead and actually attach it to that first stitch. You can knit that stitch first if you prefer, and I'll probably have to attach it once I knit that first stitch because it's a little bit tight on my needle. But make sure you mark that one with the stitch marker as well so that we know that is the first stitch in each sock. Okay, and then when you're working your rounds and pattern, you will be able to identify that. Okay, so the next thing is we're doing the second round of the pattern. So what we need to do is an increase round. And for the increase round, we're going to knit one stitch and then we're going to knit front and back on the second stitch. And then we'll knit until we have 2 stitches left of that sock. And then we'll knit front and back on that stitch. Okay, and then we'll complete this same thing on the first side of the second sock, and then we'll turn and work and do the same thing on the opposite side. All right, or the other side to complete the round. Okay, so let's go ahead and start off with our first sock. So we're going to go ahead and pull out that back needle. We are going to knit the first stitch. Keep it in my yarn. Knit the first stitch. Now we're going to knit front and back. So we're going to knit front and now back. That is going to give us an increase. And then we're going to go ahead and knit until we have 2 stitches left of that first sock. Okay, we are on our last 2 stitches, so we need to knit front and back on this stitch here. And then we're going to knit that last stitch. And now we're going to do the same for the second sock. All right, so let's get the yarn for our second sock. So we want to knit that first stitch. Now we're going to knit front and back on the second stitch. And we're going to knit until we have 2 stitches left on this sock. So just knit all of those stitches. Okay, we have 2 stitches left, so we're going to knit front and back on this stitch. And then we're going to knit the last stitch. Now we need to turn and do the same thing on the other side to complete the round. So go ahead and turn your work and push the needle back through so the stitches can rest on the needle, and we can begin to work the other side. All right. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and pull that needle out. Oops. And we're going to knit that first stitch. And then we're going to knit front and back. So knit front and back for our increase. And then we're going to knit till we have 2 stitches left of this first sock. Okay, now we need to knit front and back on this next sock here. On this stitch. We have 2 stitches left, so we're knitting front and back on that stitch. Now we knit the last stitch. Okay, now we go to our second sock here. Okay, so we're going to knit the first stitch on this sock here, and then we're going to knit front and back on the second stitch. So knit front and back. Now we're going to knit until we have 2 stitches left. All right, we have 2 stitches left, so now we need to knit front and back. And then we're going to knit the last stitch. All right, so that has completed the second round of our socks, which is also an increase round. So you should actually have 10 stitches per needle per sock. So a total of 20 stitches per sock. So 10 here, 10 here, 10 here, and 10 here. And you can go ahead and pull out that slip knot if you like to. I think that one kind of came out already on its own. And if you have not already, you can also remember to mark that first stitch with your stitch marker. I might be able to get to it. So just mark that so that you know that is when you put this down, you know where you are for your pattern. And I would definitely recommend ending off on the first stitch so that it's a lot easier to find where you are when you start again. Now all we're going to do is we're just going to continue the toe increases. So all you have to do for that is continue to increase every other round until you reach the number of stitches for your size. So if you are knitting the small size, you will need a total of 22 stitches per needle. So there will be 22 on this side and 22 on this side per sock. If you are knitting the medium size, you will need 24. And if you are knitting the large, you will need a total of 26. Okay, so of course, this is a toe-up sock, so you can definitely try it on to make sure it is fitting your size. If not, then you can definitely go ahead and make the adjustments as needed. If, for instance, you knitted the large, but it's not big enough, maybe go up a needle size. Maybe that might be helpful to you. Or if it's too large, maybe you can go size down. Okay, so instead of a large, maybe you need a medium size. All right, so hopefully that is helpful to you. So you're just going to continue on until you complete the toe increases, and then I will be back to let you know what to do next for this pattern. All right, everyone. So I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Hopefully, this is exciting for you all, and I complete mine. I will come back on again and show you what to do next. All right, everyone, stay tuned. All right, everyone. So once you have finished working your increases, if they do not measure 2 inches from your cast on, then you will want to go ahead and continue working plain rounds until it reaches 2 inches. All right, so if you are not at 2 inches for your toe just yet, then go ahead and continue working plain rounds. And what I mean by that is just knitting each stitch in the round without adding any more increases until you get to 2 inches. And that is, of course, if you have reached the number of stitches you needed to for your size. All right, so mine is at 2 inches, so that means I am ready for the next step. All right, so go ahead and do get yours to measure 2 inches, and then meet me back for the next step. All right, everyone, so now that you have made it to 2 inches from the cast on, you finished your increases and you made it to 2 inches for your toe, then we are going to go ahead and get ready to do the next step. Now, these are called my garter patch socks because we are going to work the garter stitch in different sections of the sock. So we have already completed the toe. The next section of the sock is going to be the foot, and that is where we're going to start our garter stitch pattern. Okay, so on the top of the toe, we will have, I'm sorry, not on the top of the toe, but on the top of the foot, we will have garter stitches. And on the bottom of the foot, we're going to continue on in the stockinette pattern. So if you would like, I would definitely suggest maybe getting some more stitch markers and marking the top of your sock. So that way, you know that is going to need garter stitch. Now, when you're working garter stitch in the round, you have to make sure that you knit the first row, and we left off on knit. So the very next row is going to be a purl row. Okay. And then you alternate between your knit rows and your purl rows, and that will give you garter stitch when you are working in the round. I know if you're working flat, all you have to do is turn and then just keep knitting and you get garter stitch. But this sock pattern is worked in the round, so it's very important that you remember to alternate between your knit and purl rows to get that garter stitch pattern on the top of the sock. All right, everyone, so I wanted to come on really quickly and share with you all that if you are new to doing garter stitch in the round, most projects, when you do garter stitch back and forth, you're just knitting every round. But when you do, knitting every row, and it creates the garter stitch. And you don't really have to think about, okay, which row am I on? Because every row is a knit row. But when you're doing garter stitch in a round, you do have to knit one round and purl the next, and knit and purl like that. So it is a 2-row repeat, and you do have to make sure you're doing that or it's not going to come out in the garter stitch pattern. So if you put your project down and you're not for sure, or if you just got distracted and you're not for sure, like, did I just knit that row, or did I just purl that row, or, what am I supposed to be doing now? What I like to do is I just like to tug it down like this. And if you can see, it's going to be hard for me to show you guys. If you can see, there is a V here. And if you see a V, that means you just knitted that round. So that means you don't need to do a purl row. So let me just do a couple purl stitches really quickly. Okay, so I just purled a few rows off camera. And so when you look at it now, you can see the purl bump right under the stitch. So if you see that purl bump right under the stitch, that means you need to start knitting that round in order to get the garter stitch. But if you see the V You might have to pull it down a little bit because if you leave it squished up, it's going to look like the pearl bump in there. But when you pull it down, you can see that the V is there. So if you see the V there, then that means you need to go ahead and purl that row. If you see the pearl bumps, that means you need to knit. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense to you and maybe it's a little bit helpful. That's all I want to share about that. All right, everyone. So let's go ahead and get started with working the foot section of our sock pattern. So the very first set of stitches is going to be considered the top of our sock. So if you have a stitch marker that is maybe a different color, or if you can just remember what this stitch marker represents, then this just make sure you know it represents the top of your sock. And then for this particular section of the sock, it means that we need to work the garter stitch. All right. And as I mentioned before, when you're working in a round, you need to do a row of knit and then alternate to a row of purl stitches back and forth like that to continue on with the garter stitch pattern. All right. So I'm going to also mark the top of this sock as well. And then I know when I'm on the section that is marked, I need to make sure I'm doing the proper row for a garter stitch. So whether that is the knit row or the purl row, I need to keep track of that. Now the second set of stitches will just remain in the stockinette pattern. So that means you just need to knit every row when you're working in the round, okay, for this particular sock pattern. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Since we already have a row of knit stitches, this first row we're going to do is a purl row. All right, so let's just go ahead and purl all of these stitches. Now the other day I was knitting the English style. Today I'm knitting Portuguese style because I just work better purls in my Portuguese style of knitting. But just knit your purl stitches however and whatever style you knit and whatever style you're most comfortable in, and that will be just fine. I'm just saying that in case it looks weird how I'm knitting right now, but that's all we're doing is purling these stitches on the top part of our sock, which is the first set of stitches that you come to in the round. And we know from this bottom stitch marker that these are the first stitches of the round. Okay, so all I'm doing is purling. And then when I get to the end of this, I'm going to change the yarn and start purling this next sock. Okay. Oops. So we're doing the same exact thing for this row. On the second sock is we're just going to purl all of the stitches. Okay, I'm about halfway there. All right, so just a few stitches left, and then as soon as we get to the other side, we're going to switch from purling back to knitting because we're going to maintain the stockinette stitch on the bottom side of the sock. All right, so here we are turning. And now we're on the bottom part of the sock. And this particular row, we just need to knit. All right, so we're just going to knit across the bottom of the sock for both socks. Just a couple stitches left on this one. Okay, now we can go on to the second sock. So make sure you change over your yarn. If you don't change your yarn, they will be connected. So you definitely want to make sure you're working with the correct yarn for the sock that you're knitting on. And whether you're doing the same color or different color, they should be separated on two different cakes or balls or skeins of yarn so that they don't get connected together, because you definitely want to knit two socks at a time not one big one. Okay, so let's see here. We're just knitting across this row for the second sock now. We are still on the bottom portion of the socks. And another reason why I am doing the two different colors is so that I don't connect them by accident. But if you are comfortable with this and you're just following along because of the pattern, but you have done two socks at a time and you're comfortable with that technique, then go ahead and go for that same color. But I am still new at this, so I am using two different colors, and I think this is also good for teaching this particular technique, and for those who are new at it, for them to learn as well. All right, so we have completed that round, that first round of the foot portion. So what we're going to do now is, since we're on the second row of the foot portion, we need to keep our garter stitch going. So what we're going to do now is we are going to knit this next round. Okay, and since the bottom is knit as well, that means the entire round will just be all knit stitches. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and work off camera knit stitches, and I'll come back and show you guys what that looks like. I'll be right back. All right, everyone, so I made it back around and I have completed the second row of the foot. So I just completed some knit stitches, and now this third row we'll go back to purling. Okay, and you just continue on in that manner, of course keeping the bottom and just stockinette. You'll continue on in that manner until your foot is long enough. So if you can imagine your foot, so that curve where your foot meets your heel on the top, that is where you want to stop right before it goes up any. You want to stop there, and then you want to go ahead and start working the heel pattern, which I will come back in the next clip to show you how to do that. But that's pretty much all you're going to do, is keep working in that same pattern. And you might notice that the bottom with the stockinette is longer, and that is okay. It's going to need to be longer because of how the tube sock is made. So that is exactly what I'm looking for, and everything is perfectly fine. So you, like I said, you just want to, so if you imagine your foot like that, you know, right where that curve is going up to your leg, that's where you want to stop at for your foot. And you can always try it on to see if it fits, because everybody's foot length is different. Some may need more rows than others, And it's just easy if you try it on yourself to see exactly where you need to be at. All right, and with this, it is definitely, with a toe up sock, it's definitely easy to just slide your foot in there and try it on. So just make sure that you work in pattern for the length that you need for your size foot. Okay, I did mine and I measured it to be at about 6.5 inches, and I am a woman's US size 10, if that helps. So maybe if you're, and this is from all the way from the tip of the toe all the way up to the garter stitch. You can see I did about 6.5 inches from the cast on edge. You want to measure from the cast on edge. Okay. And that is was perfect amount for me to be ready for the next step. So go ahead and knit however much you need to do for yours. Maybe if you're a woman's 9, maybe you do try 5.5 inches and then try it on and see if that works. If you're a size 11, maybe try 7.5 inches and see if that works for you. Of course, you can try it on as you go, and then that way you won't end up doing too much or knowing if you need to keep going. All right, so that is pretty much all we're going to be doing right now until we are ready to work the heel. So just continue on with the top of the foot, which you have marked with your stitch marker and garter stitch, and then you're going to continue the bottom and stockinette stitch. All right, and then just keep working that until you get ready to change over to the heel directions, in which case I will be back to share with you what to do next for that. All right, everyone, so I made it back, and I did go ahead and work and pattern the garter stitch at the top of the foot and the stockinette at the bottom of the foot until it reached where my foot curves into my leg, and that is when we need to go ahead and stop. Now, if you notice this, there's almost like 1 inch of extra at the bottom of the foot because we just did stockinette, and that is a longer stitch compared to the garter stitch because you're kind of squishing the stitches down. That's why it feels so nice and squishy, but that's what we really like about garter stitch, right? It's beautiful and it's kind of squishy. So definitely great for more cooler weather socks, right? All right, and cozy if you just want some nice cozy comfortable socks. Okay, so that is this is what we want. So that was part of the pattern design that I had in mind. And now what we're going to, so what I'm trying to say is that there's nothing wrong with this. This is exactly how it's supposed to be. Okay. So what we're going to do now is once you have the length for your foot, we're going to move on to the heel portion. So for the heel portion, it's going to be very similar to what we did to the foot, except for we're going to be working stockinette across the top now, and we are going to work the garter stitch across the bottom stitches. So if you had your stitch marker on the top to go ahead and mark that for garter stitch, you can go ahead and take that apart and you can put it on the back so you know that you now have to garter stitch on the back, or you could just leave it at the front and say, okay, well, that's the front of the sock. This is the back. I'm working on the heel, so now I need to go ahead and work the garter stitch on the heel. All right, so that's kind of part of the design of the garter patch socks. So you have a patch of garter here, and now you're going to have a patch on the heel. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to work stockinette across the top stitches of the sock. Once you get to the bottom, we already know we've been doing stockinette, which we left off on a knit. So we're going to go ahead and purl that first row and then alternate purl and knit rows to create that garter stitch pattern. And also, once you have gotten to about 4 inches, go ahead and try it on. Make sure that covers your heel. If it doesn't cover your heel, then go ahead and keep adding more rows until it does. 4 inches is about is usually about good. So I'm going to go ahead and work from, so you want to measure from this part right here. So where you finish off the stockinette stitch, you want to work 4 inches of garter stitch heel, and that's where you're going to be measuring it. You're going to measure the back of the heel or the back of the sock. You're not going to measure the top part. Okay, so make sure you work that until you get about 4 inches for the heel, and then we'll come back to the tutorial to see what to do next. I'll just go ahead and work the first round with you guys really quick, and that way you can see. So I did actually leave off on a knit row, so it should start looking like stockinette on this next row, or round I should say. So all we're going to do is work that stockinette. So just knit all of the top stitches for every round, and then when we get to the bottom of the sock, we're going to go ahead and alternate between knit and purl rows. Okay, and we did the stockinette on the bottom already, so that means we left off on a knit row, so that means our round, so that means our first round for the bottom set of stitches is going to be a purl round. Okay, all right, so there's the first sock. I think I'm going to go ahead and let me see. Well, I'll get, when I get to the green sock on the back, then I'll stop there. Okay, so let me change my yarn. Okay, and I do need to say that this is my actual first time successfully knitting socks 2 at a time. I have tried it before, but I had a lot of complications, so I was definitely glad to try it again and actually succeed at it. And I do actually like this better than 1 at a time socks, so I think that I will probably, as long as it's something simple like the tube socks, and that is what I like to knit. I like to knit simple socks because I want a lot of socks. And they just feel, knit socks feel so comfortable. So I don't mind just a plain knit sock that my feet can feel cozy and comfortable in. I don't necessarily need a fancy sock. They're nice to have every once in a while, so I don't mind knitting a pair, but I definitely probably will have the majority of simply knitted socks, such as tube socks like this. And I am definitely probably going to be knitting a few more pairs of these for myself as well, because they are very, very cozy. All right, so now we have made it to the bottom stitches. So that was the top stitches. Now we're on the bottom stitches, and now we're going to work our first round of garter stitch on the bottom, and that is going to be a round of purl stitches. So we're on the back, we left off with the knit stitches. Now this first round we are going to purl on the back or the bottom of the sock. Okay, so either you can continue to have your stitch marker marking the front of the sock, or you can move it to the back and know, okay, and say, okay, well, now I need to work garter stitch on the back of the sock. So whichever way is easier for you to remember, go ahead and do that. And then you're just going to continue on and pattern until you get 4 inches of heel. And once you get the 4 inches of the heel, you will come back to the video and I will show you what to do next. All right, so I am going to finish these last few stitches here, show you what that looks like, and then we'll come back when we're done. All right, so as you can see, we have that first round of purl stitches, and then we're going to come back and do a round of knit stitches, and then that will create that garter stitch pattern on the bottom of the sock for our heel. All right, so hopefully that makes sense, and it's pretty simple and easy. We're just reversing what we did from the top. Now we're doing it on the bottom, and that way our heel will have a nice squishy bottom in this pair of socks. All right, so go ahead and work your 4 inches of garter stitch for the heel, and make sure you continue to work stockinette stitch on the top of the sock, and I will meet you all back when I have mine done. All right, everyone. So I finished my, oops. I finished my heel, and as you can see, I have 4 inches of the garter stitch. Now that does give me about 5 inches of stockinette for the top of the sock, but that is okay. What we're going to do now is kind of even that out. And so we're going to work 1 inch of garter stitch in the front now. So once you have gotten your heel and the garter stitch complete, the next thing we want to do is work 1 inch of garter stitch in the front of the sock. So if you need to move your stitch marker in the front to remember that, go ahead and do so. If not, then just go ahead and work garter stitch in the front, and then we're going to switch to stockinette stitch in the back. Now, once you have reached your 1 inch of garter stitch in the front of the sock, that should even it out pretty good. And then you can go on and do your ribbing. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the twisted rib, and that is I'm gonna do a 1x1 twisted rib. So that is when you knit one through the back loop, and then you purl one, and then you just continue that sequence, knit one in the back loop and purl one. So I'll go ahead and work my 1 inch of garter stitch in the front with stockinette on the back side, and then I'll come back and show you guys the twisted rib. Other than that, you can pretty much do whatever kind of ribbing you would like, whether 1x1 or if there's something else that you are interested in, you can finish off your socks that way. The next step that we need to do is work the 1 inch of garter stitch in the front of the sock with stockinette on the back side. Okay, and that should even us out, and then we're able to move on to the ribbing of our choice, or the the ribbing of our choice. All right, everyone, so that I'm going to go ahead and work on mine off camera, and then I'll be back when I have that done. All right, everyone, and I'm back. So I did the 1 inch of garter stitch on the front of the sock, and that evened out what we were working on before. So if you would like to continue on to make your sock a little longer, and you wanted to make like go back and forth between the garter and the stockinette, you could do that, but you definitely want to take note of how many rows that you do so that you can even it out before you move on to ribbing. Other than that, you can go ahead and move on to ribbing, and I already did. I went ahead and started my ribbing. So what I did here is the twisted rib. It's a twisted 1x1 rib, and I like this better than the traditional 1x1 ribbing because that one can get stretched out a little bit quicker. And this kind of ribbing seems to last a little bit longer and is a little more sturdier. And that's great for a sock because it does need to hug your leg a little bit so that it stays on instead of sliding down and slipping off. So I will show you how to do this 1x1 twisted rib in case you're not familiar with that. And then I will show you all how to cast off the sock because I'm just about out of yarn for mine. So I'm thinking that this should be enough for one more round and for casting off. All right. So, and that is a good thing. You do want to make sure you have enough yarn to cast off with, and usually about 3 times the length of what you would need for here. So just make sure you have enough. Be generous because you don't want to run out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the 1x1 twisted rib, and then I'll come back to show you how to do the bind off. All right, so let's go ahead and do this twisted ribbing. So excuse me for 1 second. Let me get set up here. Okay, so for the twisted rib, all you're going to do is you're going to, when you're doing your knit stitches, you're going to knit. When you're doing your knit stitches, you're going to knit in the back loop. So this is considered knitting in the front or just knitting. And then this is when you put your needle behind the stitch, or this back leg here, that's knitting through the back loop. All right, so this would be a traditional knit, and this would be knitting through the back loop. So that's all that means, is you put your knitting needle here, and then you're just going to wrap your yarn as if to knit, and then you pull the stitch off the needle just like that. So that is the only difference when you're doing the twisted ribbing, is you're going to knit through that back loop. And that's it. It's very simple. So you just knit one, and then you're going to purl the next stitch. So you knit one through the back loop, and then you purl the next stitch. And then you just continue on like that all the way around. Now, I did fail to mention that when I finished this off, I did do one round of just knit stitches all the way around before I started the twisted rib. And that is just so I can see the stitches easier. If you've already started, that's totally fine. It's not necessary, but I will probably hopefully have put it on the screen when I'm editing to go ahead and knit one round of knit stitches before you start your ribbing. Like I said, it's not necessary, but it was just a little bit easier for me, and I do like to make things easier. So I apologize for missing that step, but hopefully I will put that on the screen when editing. All right, so just continuing on with the ribbing now, you're just doing that purl stitch and then knitting through the back loop. So it's a little bit different if you've never done this before, but once you get the hang of it, it does have a nice flow to it, and it's pretty easy. I do notice that I think I have like one pair of socks that I have knit with this kind of ribbing before, and it is long. It does hold up a lot better than the traditional 1x1 ribbing. So I would definitely recommend this. If you don't feel comfortable to doing this, you can choose any style ribbing that you like, and that would just help the sock to stay up on your leg, and that way it'll keep it from sliding down so easily. So that's all the ribbing is about. All right, so I think you guys probably have the hang of this by now. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing this last round on my second sock, and then coming back to finish off on the other side. And then I will meet you back when I finish off on this side to go ahead and do the bind off. Now, I do know that since this is my stitch marker on this side, that this is where I end off to finish that round. It is important that you know where you end off at, so that it is nice and even around, that you have completed the round. So hopefully you can see where the end of your round is at. All right, and I know mine is on this side. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and finish off, and then I will meet you back when I have mine done. All right, everyone, so I did finish that round. Now, if you were just starting your ribbing, you would definitely want to go as far as you can, as far as your yarn allows, or as far as you would prefer. If you have a lot of yarn left and you just want to go up a little bit. But let's see, I probably have about 2 inches of ribbing on mine, give or take, and that is enough for me. The sock is already coming up my leg, so I am definitely happy with that. This is perfect for the cooler seasons coming up. They're kind of in between a slipper sock and a sock, depending on how much wiggle room you have in your shoes. You could definitely wear these with shoes or boots, and I am definitely going to be wearing mine. But they also, if you don't really have that much room in your shoes because you like a tighter fit, then they would definitely be great for around the house socks, slipper socks. But they are definitely warm and cozy, which is what I'm excited about. And I do enjoy how easy these are to work up and how well they fit. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and do the bind off. Like I said, you want to keep working on your ribbing until you are ready for the bind off, and then you can come back to this part. Now, what we need to do is a stretchy bind off, and if you already know of a stretchy bind off that you like to do for socks, go ahead and do that. If not, if you don't know one, all I'm going to do is I'm going to work 2 sets of knit 1, purl 1, or knit 1 through the back loop, purl 1, knit 1 through the back loop, purl 1, and then I'm going to do a yarn over. And that will help us to get a little bit more fabric in our sock, and then that will allow it to be a little bit more stretchy and have a little bit more give, so that when we're putting on the sock, it's easier to put on, but it's not going to be too loose at the top where it's just kind of wavy and doesn't hold tight. So that is my plan for my stretchy bind off. There are lots of stretchy bind offs you can search for tutorials for, but this is the one that I'm going to do. And also you could always, if you're using interchangeable needles like I am, you could always twist them, push the stitches back, twist them off, and pop on a larger size needle, maybe a size or 2 larger. And then that will be helpful to make it stretchier as well, or just to provide more fabric so that it is easier to slide on and off your foot. All right, so that is the plan. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to, of course, knit 1 through the back loop to start off the bind off. So knit 1 through the back loop, then we're going to purl 1, and then we're going to bind that stitch off. Okay, so we're just going to take that, pass it over, and that is bound off. Now I'm going to knit 1 through the back loop. I forgot to bind that off. Bind that off, or pass the stitch over. There we go. Then I'm going to purl this stitch. I'm going to pass it over. And then, okay, so then I'm going to do a yarn over. And then I'm going to pass that stitch over. Just like that. And now I'm going to go ahead and knit through the back loop. Pass that stitch over. Purl 1. Pass that stitch over. Knit through the back loop. Pass that stitch over. Purl 1. Pass that stitch over. Yarn over. And then I'm going to pass that over. And then it's a little bit, it'll give a little bit more fabric. Of course, it's stretchy because of the ribbing, but doing that extra yarn over gives a little bit more space in between the ribbing, so that it allows for the sock to fit over your foot. So I'm just going to continue on in that manner. Also, if you're doing it a little bit looser, that is definitely helpful as well, to bind off looser, because you definitely want your sock to fit over your foot. Because if it doesn't fit, you did all this work for nothing. So finding a stretchy bind off that works good for you is definitely well worth it when it comes to finishing off your sock, because you definitely want it to fit over your foot. So try to make sure you're doing it loosely. And then if you add in that yarn over, you can do, if you think you need a little bit more fabric, you will always do a knit 1, purl 1, and then do a yarn over if you want. I just don't want mine to be too loose, because I just don't like that. I don't like the sock falling down my foot. So however you need to do that for yourself. All right, so I just have a little bit more to go. Oops. I did kind of lose where I was at, but if I do an extra yarn over in between, that's no big deal. As long as I'm remembering to bind off the stitches, that's perfectly fine. So I'll just go ahead and do a yarn over, because I lost where I was. And then I'll go back to the ribbing. So I'll just finish off this set of stitches here, and then we can check out the stretchiness before I go on to finish my other sock. So there, and I'll go ahead and do a yarn over here. And then, whoops. Okay, we just got a couple more stitches to go. And then here's the last one for this side of the sock. Okay, so let's see what it's looking like. So you can see the extra yarn overs in between, how that's going to give me a little bit more room. It does feel nice and stretchy, so I know it's going to fit over my foot. If you need, like I said, if you need more room, you could just do yarn over after each knit and purl if you think you need more room. Other than that, you can just continue on in that same manner to finish off the side of this sock, and then the back side of that sock, and then finishing off here. All right, so hopefully this tutorial was fun and helpful for you. I am super excited. I'm going to have my socks pretty soon, and I hope you are excited as well. Definitely come back and make plenty of these. These are great for on-the-go projects when you just want something to work on. I'm definitely going to keep a pair casted on for me to do that while I'm out on the go. And I can't wait to wear them. So let me know what you think of this tutorial in the comments down below. I'll be back with a picture to show you guys what they look like all finished. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you gave this tutorial a thumbs up and subscribed if you haven't already. I would really enjoy having you a part of this distinctive family over here. That way you can keep in touch on what I'm making, as well as other tutorials that I will have to share for you. All right, everyone, thank you so much. Stay tuned for that finished picture, and I will see you all in the next one.